Okay, there are two articles I like to read here dealing with the Kenosha case. The Rittenhouse, the young guy who took a gun across state lines from Illinois into Wisconsin. So, what will Kenosha look like if Rittenhouse is acquitted? This article states. This is November 15th. Kenosha, Wisconsin locals told Fox News they expect protests if Kyle Rittenhouse is acquitted, but hope demonstrators remain peaceful and kept under control. There'll be more society disruption, upset. There will probably be some more demonstrations, one woman told Fox News. If he's completely exonerated, I think there will be protests. Another local said. Rittenhouse was charged with 2 counts of homicide and shooting Joseph Rosenbaum, 36, and Anthony Huber, 26, and faces an attempted first-degree intentional homicide charge for shooting Gage Cruz. Rittenhouse, who was 17 at the time, has argued that he fired his weapon in self-defense during the August 25, 2020 unrest in Kenosha following the police shooting of Jacob Blake. People are worried we are going to have the same problem we had, burning the city down, one resident told Fox News. But he felt the city has everything under control since Kenosha has gone through this before, and there's 500 National Guards on standby. Amy Perry, owner of Strobe's Flower Cart, said she assumed there would be protests if Rittenhouse is acquitted, knowing the actions of the people. But she similarly said, I know Kenosha is ready for them. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers authorized roughly 500 National Guard troops to support local partners in ensuring public safety in conjunction with hundreds of officers from volunteering law enforcement agencies. Evers said the state continues to be in close contact with partners at the local level to help ensure the state provides support and resources to help keep the Kenosha community and greater area safe. I urge folks who are otherwise not from not from this area, like this guy, he wasn't from that state, not from this area, to please respect the community and encourage any demonstrators to protest peacefully. Oliver's Bakery owner Ann Benson told Fox News, I pray that people won't come in from other states and do more damage. Like this same guy, he came in from a different state. I hope that it won't come to the boards on the window. I don't really think it will. She continued. She said other small businesses came in asking what she was going to do. I'm going to wait, Benson said. I'm going to think positive because this town has been through so much, and I know we don't want to go through it again. Duck Goose children's shop owner Jennifer Widener also said she would not be boarding up. We are not too concerned, Widener said. She added that she expected any protests to remain peaceful as long as demonstrators were not agitated. Jurors in Kenosha County Courthouse expected to begin deliberating Monday after. She probably could say that because she probably figured that he's going to be convicted or something. And the reason, okay, it was a Black Lives Matter protest, but who were killed? 2 young white men were killed, right, in the prime of their lives. Another white guy got shot. I think he was 26 at the time. As he said, his bicep, I think, and his right arm was eviscerated, you know. So the last thing this community wants, and I believe that I believe that part of the country has a very high white population in Kenosha. Last year, by chance, I happened to work at the Real, that store. But where people sell, bringing like these expensive clothing and so forth, like, and they don't want like all these brand names and so forth. And there was a lady there, was a young woman. She was from Kenosha too. Yeah, it was pure coincidence. Sounds different, completely different accent than you have here in New York. So yeah. So I mean, they're from a different. What would I say? Like culture or so forth. Look at things very differently, and I'm not so sure, like, if they're gonna see this guy as defending himself, because it's like, okay, this is where they live, and he put their town in the spotlight, shooting people, and I don't think that's the way they want to come across, because you got two white guys who were killed on behalf of like protesting what was happening, police shooting of a black individual. Okay, it's not like two black men were killed. That might have been a different story if you look at it. But the fact that they were protesting, okay, you had like some people got carried away. There was some rioting. Some people were destroying property or so forth. But in this country, we don't usually take people's lives because of property destruction. That's not how we structured here. We believe that property could be replaced. We believe that companies can have insurance and they can apply for insurance. Like when you have like a tornado or so forth, you apply and you get money for your loss, your damages and so forth. That's how we look at the property. We don't believe that you need to go out there with a gun. Even here in New York, last year, when I worked up there on Madison Avenue, there were still a number of places that were boarded up. Some of the shops, and these shops, they were selling like really expensive stuff. You really have to have like a lot of money, be loaded. I remember one guy coming in, like a real big, fat guy with a beautiful looking woman, and he paid for all this expensive stuff, like the handbags, and I'm saying to myself, you know what? If this guy was just a fat, regular guy, this woman wouldn't even be with him. She wouldn't even be with him. But be it as it may, that's how it is. And in the store that I was working at, they had like an off-duty police officer. Well, there was some rotated too, like different days you may see some different ones. And one of them told me he was getting paid like $45 an hour just to have a gun. And if there was like if people are coming there like you see in the TV where you have like people rushing in, like a whole bunch of people come in and start taking stuff. And I've seen that, and it happened like I think just last week. They did it up in I think it might have been Madison Avenue too. Yeah, up in the Upper East Side. All of a sudden, a whole bunch of people rushed in, stole thousands of dollars worth of clothing and so forth, and just rush out like that. Okay, so my point is, you have like a security guard in there, like an ex-cop, retired cop, earning like $45 an hour. He's not gonna shoot them. No, he's not. He's not gonna shoot them. They come in, it's robbery, because you have certain things with insurance. So these places are insured. Well, he's there is to protect the life. Now, it's different if they came in with a gun and point a gun, at the people, and he has no choice but to protect them. Then he's gonna have to take his gun out to protect the life of the employees. But other than that, if you're just stealing and a whole bunch of them come in and they're taking stuff, he's not gonna go in there and pull his gun out and start blasting away, because that's not how the law works. That you start shooting people to protect property. No. You try to prevent it from happening, but that's not how it works. But this guy was doing the opposite. He went out there and said he crossed state lines with a gun at his age. See, in New York, in New York, where I live here, in New York City especially, this guy will be locked up because you just can't come in here with a gun like that. First of all, they know they won't allow you to have that kind of gun anywhere. The local government won't allow you to be walking around with a gun. This guy's walking around with a gun, and that's how some of these states are. Some of these states got some really ridiculous laws, whereby you can just walk around the street with a gun. Here, that's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. We do a lot of things differently here, like in the Ahmed Arbery case. There's another case in Georgia. The black guy, he was jogging. I think he was like 25 years old. 3 white men chased after him, said that they thought he was a burglar. I just came from outside from Queens, and I was walking down Northern Boulevard, and I passed a few construction sites. And one thing I noticed about the construction sites in New York, they all have like a fencing, and they have like a certain part where it's like not so much an opening, but like a small little window, maybe made of like a plexiglass you could look through, and you could see what's going on. So if you're a curious person and you want to see what's going on, you could stand there and you could look through that opening, and you could look at everything in the construction site. Where this guy got killed, I guess they have no such laws. Under construction, everything is open, so it attracts curious people. And if you live in a small town, and I've been down to small town, in the south, like in Tennessee and so forth, and in some of those places, there's not much going on, okay? So if you pass in a construction site, you may be curious because you got nothing else going on. You see, not like in New York. In New York, there's a lot of stuff going on here. However, in New York, the way the law is set up is that if something is under construction, it has to be fenced in. So there's no temptation to be wandering around on the property while construction is going on, for safety reasons too, insurance reasons. You don't want to have anybody just showing up on the property. And so they've claimed that they thought he was a burglar, and there's like video evidence there show he stopped there a few times and he looked around instead of just kept on jogging. Because like me, for example, if I live in the South as a black man, I wouldn't even take my time out to be looking around a construction site, knowing the history of the South. That's just me. I would just keep on jogging and mind my business. But he chose to go in there a few times. So they believe that he's a burglar, and that doesn't mean that gave them the right to shoot him. But I'm just contrasting here how different the laws are in this state where I live than over there. In those other states, they don't have any laws like that. So you have something under construction, it's open, anybody can walk in, and there were other people who walked in too. There were kids walked in, there were couples walked in, there was a white couple walked in on the construction site. One of them even took stuff, I think a piece of board. He didn't take anything. So here in New York, if you pass a construction site, you will see like there's maybe like they have like a few openings, several openings with some plexiglass like, and you can look through and you can see. So if you're a curious person and you want to see what's going on, you could look in, but you can't get on the property though. That's the difference. You can't get in for obvious reasons, whether it's for theft, because these properties usually have a lot of stuff that's worth a lot of money. So you don't want anybody coming in and stealing. So obviously you can look, but you can't get in there. And at the end of the day, when they finish doing their work, they close it up. And they leave, and you can't get in there. And if you do get in there, that means you're a burglar. And then, of course, then somebody has the right to come after you, I guess. You see. So that's the point I wanted to make on that. But with him, this guy crossed state lines to protect property that he has no business protecting. The state of Wisconsin has police officers in different jurisdictions. They have the National Guard. So why would you need a 70-year-old come into your neighborhood? And I think the people on the jury from that county might become a bit irritated to know that this guy came into their city or whatever, on their county, and he put them on the map. And he put them on the map in a bad way, because there are people who were funding his defense who couldn't care less about the reputation of Kenosha, Wisconsin. They care more about advancing gun rights and things like that, you see. That's what they care about. And that's why they take this case up. And if you listen to some of the right-wing media, they will preach that this guy was just defending himself. Well, not really. If you go into a place to start trouble, and you start trouble, then you can't use the defense and say that you were defending yourself. And I understand, he said, I was defending myself. That's what he said. Well, that's for the jury to determine. That's not for him to say. He said, I was defending myself. No. You went into a place ready for a fight, like in the Old West. That's what it really amounts to. And when you look at it, he said, well, he went to, I think, an auto dealer, and he spoke to them, and they say, yeah, sure, you can help us out. And, okay, so if that's the case, he should have just remained right there. He should have remained in the compound, but instead, and this is in the same night. So instead, he removed himself from the auto dealership where he claimed he's going to defend, or protect, or guard. And he wades into the crowd of people protesting, and he has a gun. So who's the most likely person going to show up at a protest with a gun? Somebody who believes you shouldn't be out there. That's the way it usually works, because if you are a regular protester and you believe there's some kind of injustice going on, and chances are you're shouting out, you're talking about, about the police, what they did, and you say what they did is wrong and there should be redress, there should be changes. Well, the last thing you want to be doing is confront the police with a long gun. You don't want to do that. So why even bring a gun? So when they saw him more like as a troublemaker, somebody who's an instigator, somebody who was out, to start trouble. This was not like somebody who was a volunteer fireman going out to put out fire. This was somebody who more likely was somebody walking around with a can of gasoline, ready to start a fire. and then claim, oh, I'm here to put a fire out, if there is any fire. That's what it really amounts to. So I'm not so sure if he's going to get off scot-free 100%, as some people say, putting him on the stand and he's crying and he's having these panic attacks. I was saying, I was defending myself, wow. It's like, you set the stage, you set the scene, you like daring people. Other people you shot, and when that's well, why did you shoot this person? He touched my gun. Well, that's not really a defense. Self-defense really comes down to where you believe your life is in imminent danger. If somebody touched your gun, how is that self-defense? Even if somebody touched you, you have to believe your life is really in imminent danger. That you have no choice. And to me, that really doesn't fall under the statute, whereby just saying, well, he touched my gun. So how is that rise to the level of your life is in imminent danger? And then the other fellow he shot, who bicep he evaporated, this guy has pain for the rest of his life. Pain. This was really, really uncalled for. And what's really more amazing is that his mother drove him across state lines. Can you imagine that? I remember when I was young, when I had a mother, wow. I stayed out looking at I think there was some kind of film at the school I was going to. And it was a little past the time, and she came looking for me. She came with a whip looking for me, My mother would have never done something like this to take me into danger. She would say, are you kidding? With all that's going on in there, you going into danger? It's like here in New York, growing up, I would see people fighting, and I would see people running to the fight, Instead of like running away, I would see people running to it. They're curious to see who's fighting, why people. And usually, if you see something like that, you want to move away, because let's say somebody has a gun and takes out a gun and starts shooting. You don't want to be shot, right? So why would you be running towards something? And this is what he did. And his mother took him in there. See? His mother took him right there. So his mother is just as bad. Really. She should be charged. Yeah. She should be charged. Her kid was only 17 at the time, and she brings him across state line. Who does that? So this is the second article here. Judge tosses gun charge against Kyle Rittenhouse before closing arguments. And this article is from today. A misdemeanor gun charge. Why does this thing keeps coming up? Misdemeanor gun charge against Kyle Rittenhouse was dismissed just hours before jurors were expected to begin deliberating the fate of the teenager accused of murdering 2 people and trying to kill a third. A police violence occurred during a police violence protest last August. Hours later, prosecutors made a last-ditch attempt to convince jurors that Rittenhouse was a teen gunman with no legal authority nor the honor to take lives. The defense has argued throughout the trial that Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. You cannot claim self-defense against a danger you create. That's critical right here. If you are the one who is threatening others, you lose the right to claim self-defense, Binger argued on Monday. Rittenhouse, 18, has faced a slew of charges, including first-degree reckless homicide in relation to the August 25, 2020, shooting amid unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, over the police shooting of Jacob Blake. During two incidents caught on camera, Rittenhouse fired an AR-15 and killed 36-year-old Joseph Rosenbaum and 26-year-old Anthony Huber. He also severely wounded Gage Grushkart, now 27. After killing Anthony Huber, after severely wounding Gage Grushkart, the defendant walks away like he's some sort of hero in a western, without care in the world for anything he's just done, Binger said Monday. Like the prosecution, the Rittenhouse defense team detailed the events that led to the shooting, but insisted that the teenager was just reacting to being attacked by rioters. Defense Mark Richards even went as far as accusing the prosecution of lying and misrepresenting the evidence when arguing Rittenhouse provoked violence in Kenosha. Kyle was a 17-year-old kid trying to help this community. He was asked to provide help, and he did it, Richards insisted, noting to jurors that the prosecution has the burden to prove. So he was a kid. Who was going to ask a 17-year-old kid to provide help in something so tumultuous, where you have rioting going on, property damage, fires, and so forth? Who's going to invite him? I mean, really, that's real negligence. Who were the people who invited him? None of that makes sense, because he's not of age. He's not an adult. So under the law, he's still a child. So that's not even legal, to be inviting a child to provide help and to bring in a gun. But just before jurors heard closing arguments in the murder trial, Kenosha Judge Bruce Schroeder accepted the defense motion to dismiss the charge of possession of a dangerous weapon by a person under 18. Now, something like that will never happen here in New York City, where you have an AR-15 and you're just going to dismiss that. No, that's not going to work here in New York. The only misdemeanor the teenager was facing, the Rittenhouse, and here it's probably a felony. The Rittenhouse defense team has argued to dismiss misdemeanor charges, punishable by up to 9 months behind bars throughout the trial. In accepting the argument, Schroeder, who has come under withering scrutiny, centering on accusation of favoring the defendant, explained the dismissal came because Wisconsin law was poorly written, and that the longer barrel size of the firearm Rittenhouse carried out that night meant he did not violate the statute. Well, in my opinion, if the law is poorly written, then leave it as it is and give it to the jury and let the appeals court figure that out if they convict him on that. You know, why is the judge trying to say, well, it's poorly written and he's not going to apply the law? No, this is the chance to apply, and that's why you have the appeals court. So you apply the law, you give it to the jury, and let's say he got convicted on that, and then they can always appeal that at the appellate level and see if the appellate court agrees with him. That shouldn't be for the sitting judge to be doing all this legal maneuvering and so forth, to be saying, well, the law was poorly written. Well, the law was written by the state, right? The state legislature. That's how the law came into being. So what makes him think it's poorly written? If it's poorly written, let the appeals court deal with it. The prosecution conceded that Rittenhouse's rifle was not short barrel, as the law prohibits, leaving Rittenhouse facing 5 felony charges. Their first-degree reckless homicide, 2 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety, first-degree intentional homicide, and attempted first-degree intentional homicide. Former federal prosecutor Niama Rahman believes that the prosecution case is not totally lost, despite the last-minute decision to dismiss the gun charge. Rahman told the Daily Beast he was not surprised by the dismissal, noting that the statute was poorly worded and that the judge said he was still researching the law last week. The prosecution was overcharging and not putting evidence in, Rahman said, noting that Schroeder has also been ruling throughout the trial in favor of the defense. Indeed, this is the second time Schroeder has accepted the defense motion to dismiss charges against Rittenhouse. Last week, Schroeder dismissed a violating curfew charge, a misdemeanor that the judge ruled the prosecution did not present enough evidence for. A Rittenhouse attorney also noted on Monday that the defense officially filed a motion for a mistrial with prejudice, a move that would disallow prosecutors from retrying the case, and was brought up in court last week. Schroeder said he would rule on the matter later, before bringing in the jury to begin instructing them on the law as to whether Rittenhouse was acting lawfully in self-defense at the time of the shootings. For Paul Boucher, a former district attorney in Waukesha County, Wisconsin, and a one-time state attorney general candidate, the prosecutorial losses were not surprising because this case was overcharged. The government lost sight of what they could prove in this case, and now the judge is mending it by dismissing charges, Boucher said. During the trial, the government also did not spend enough time proving Rittenhouse's mindset when he pulled the trigger. On Friday, however, Schroeder instructed the jury to consider 2 lesser charges in relation to Huber's shooting, and Huber is the guy who died, which previously produced the most serious charge. First-degree intentional homicide. The judge denied the prosecution's request for the option of a lesser charge in Rosenbaum's death. Schroeder also instructed the jury on Monday to consider 2 lesser charges: attempted second-degree intentional homicide and first-degree recklessly endangering safety for the pre-existing attempted first-degree intentional homicide charge related to the shooting of Grosskreutz. During the trial, Grosskreutz testified that the gunshot wound he sustained from Rittenhouse vaporized his bicep. Now, it seems the prosecution's saving grace could be the lesser charges that the judge approved of, Boucher said. According to the ex-prosecutor, lesser charges are a last-minute way for the prosecution to secure a conviction. In this case, Boucher added, the prosecution asking for a slew of lesser charges proves they are aware they didn't argue an ironclad case. Well, I'm not sure if that's the case, but what it is that you're dealing with jurors, and you're dealing with people who could be finicky, and you never know. This guy is claiming self-defense, and then you have, on the other side, you have jurors who probably came from the same community. This guy shot 3 white men, killed 2 of them, and those people could have been members of their family. And they probably could be asking themselves, how would I feel if this young guy comes, into my neighborhood or what have you, and shoot one of my relatives? or provokes them. Show up at a rally or a protest where people are agitated already at the police. You know, people have their differences with the police. People have a First Amendment right to protest. And then he shows up with a gun, like he's on the side of the police. You see? And some people are going to be upset with that. You know? You showing up to protect property. When you see look at the world the police were driving around in, armorized vehicles, right? Where they could protect themselves well. Like they're in war. And this guy is walking around with a gun. And that, I think, was just too much for some people to bear. To say, who is this guy, you know? What makes him think he's so brave and bold that he's going to be walking around here with a gun? So you get challenged that way. So he put himself out there, and then he gets challenged, and then he has no choice but to come out and use his gun and say, I'm defending myself. Well, that's not how it works. If he was just some guy going out to the store and depicting him, and he had no choice, that would be a different story. But he wasn't some guy who just was going out to the store to buy some candy or soft drinks. He was a guy with a certain mindset who was out there to defend property and to shoot and kill if necessary. And that's exactly what he did. And when you look at the reason why the things he shot and did, somebody who he touched my gun. That's no reason to shoot and kill somebody because somebody touched your gun. Come on, you know. Your life got to be really in serious danger for you to shoot and kill somebody. So, to me, in my opinion, I don't think the jury is going to let him off scot-free because he came into the community. He's not even from there. He's not one of them, you know. And they know that if they were to like say, okay, this guy was defending himself, then every Tom, Dick, and Harry, as the saying goes, could come in the future and say, well, I'm defending myself. And then, you know, you turn the place upside down. And many of these people don't want to live in an environment like that, you know. They want to live in a quiet area. They want to live in a place where their homes have value, where they could say, oh yeah, I have property value here. It's not depreciating. You see, but if you live in an environment where people could just come in because of some jury verdict, given the green light to come in, bring a gun in, cause mayhem, shoot people up, and then yell, yeah, I was defending myself. Then you know what? You open up a Pandora's box, and you're gonna have a lot more problems in the future. And I'm not so sure if that's what they want. And I think at the end of the day, they're gonna rule in a way that would say, no, we don't need this nonsense. People coming in here and taking the law into their own hands. And then when they see, you know, they can't deal with the problems that they generate, then they have no choice but to shoot somebody and then claim I was defending myself. That's not the way the law works. And that's why I think he's going to be found guilty on some charges. I don't know which one, but they're going to find him guilty and they're going to send his ass to prison.